to another Jessica's Media Center where we'll get into books, TV, movies, art, and podcasts, music, whatever the case may be. Like whatever's in my media center, this will serve as documentation of all the things that I enjoy media-wise. So, we'll get into books first. So, where I left off the last time we spoke, as far as books, I said I was going to read Theft, which was a book club pick by Abdulrazak Gurnah. I hope that's how his name is. Finished it. I listened to it. It was a really good... Okay. I'm trying not to use like words like really good, especially when explaining books sometimes. I'm trying to like use different vocabulary to describe things. It was good for probably a book that you read after you read majority of his catalog, right? I think if you're already a fan of his work, this is the book for you. And so it made me want to go back to see why he won the Nobel Prize, because this book, it was good, don't get me wrong, but there were some qualms that I had when we were talking about it in book club as well. Like everybody had similar like thought processes, like not everybody, but some people did. Is like the chapter titles, when we're going in between voices, could be named after some of the characters, or like, you know, stuff like that. Like that would make more sense, right? Just to help you distinguish, because the voices are flowing into each other. You know you're talking into a next one, but like to keep up with what is going on in the time periods of things would have been very good in this case. The ending threw me off, threw everybody off, if I'm being honest. So we all said like we would read it again because the writing is good, but it's one of those writers that you've already sat with. You've already like experienced. I kind of compare it to like when people jump into the Heaven and Earth grocery store without reading the rest of James McBride's work, because if you're not used to what he got going on, it's kind of like, hold up girl, like what is happening here? That's what my prediction is. So I'm going to go back and read what is the book? I'll pop it up here, but
2 hours later.
Afterlives. And then I'll just go from there. I think that's the one that won. I also enjoy when artists, well, he's an artist, but when authors have similar like book cover designs, like he has something going on here that I enjoy, and I'll try to put all his book covers. But like for instance, Theft and Desertion. I hope that's right. Not dissertation. They have similar like artists, but then like Afterlives and Paradise, Memory of Departure also have a similar look. Very fascinating. I like that. I like the vibe of that. But anyways, I do want to also note that in Theft, he writes, we spoke about this in book club as well, he writes women very well. Like the experiences of women, like you would, like there's a chapter, a specific moment in the book where it was like, oh, that's really bad, of course. But like certain details, you're just like, he pays attention to the women in his life. I like that. The next book, I read Jesmyn Ward's book on Witness and Respair for the podcast with Shelby, the League of Extraordinary Readers. We read that as our book club pick, our podcast pick for June. If you've been here a while, on any of my platforms, if you listen to the podcast, you know I love Jesmyn. I think she is the writer of our time. I think she is up there with, like, you can tell she studies Toni Morrison, right? Loved it. I think there is like, we've talked about this on the podcast if you listen to it, there is some sort of repetition. But I guess within our conversation with me and Shelby, we were talking about the repetition could be from the cycle of grief at the end of the day, right? And I think that was very interesting to pick up on. I love the journey of it. Some of the essays I have read before, like maybe 4 or 5 of them I've read before, obviously outside of the most recent ones, but there were some that were already republished. So there's not much of a huge difference if you keep up with what she has going on. I enjoyed her opening up about her, I don't think this one was published before, but there was an essay about her husband and losing him in COVID. I thought that was very interesting. And I think it's also on time that this book came out around the time that we're discussing Nolan Wells's untimely demise and murder at the end of the day, and Mississippi, and how she reveres and talks about the South and how she loves the South and how she returns. It's like a love-hate relationship she has with the South, which I appreciate. I know people don't like to consider Florida the South, but growing up in the South, because we are a southern state, I think, for me personally, I respect her experience, I respect why, and I do think there need to be people that stay behind and are historians for these places. As for me, I personally couldn't stay in Florida. If we're being honest, it just was not something I wanted to do, right? Just career-wise, mentally, morally to an extent, you know? But I respect it, because who is going to be the ones to write the history, right? Who's the ones that's going to advocate for these things? So I enjoyed listening to that. I still think the South deserves more respect than what we give it. Next, I finished Brother Epistles by Shonda McManus. That's also dealing with grief as well. And I liked the format. We also talked to her on the podcast. And I loved talking to her because she makes grief sound in a way where it's there, life doesn't end after grief. I mean, after the person passes away. Like, and that grief is not, what's the word I'm looking for? Like, grief is a privilege for a lot of people. And in the sense of, like, for us as Black people, me being a Black woman, we are not always afforded time to grieve. And I like how she spoke about the grieving process and how writing this book was a process. Enjoyed the letter format of things. It was different than what would see from a book, right? Then Leave Your Mess at Home. Now that book, there's so much to say about that book. Wow. The overall thought process, the overall like themes that I got from it, because I enjoyed each of the characters, they all had their own faults. They all had their own, like, they had to work through a lot. And what I enjoyed the most was always the coming back to self, honoring yourself and honoring your wants, despite what people say, as well as honoring your home and your heritage and coming back together. I think that was just, despite it all, like, they all came back together in the end. And I loved it. I think it's just an incredible book that anybody should read. I think the author did an amazing job with this book and talking about so many different things that you like, being first gen, the homophobia, and how being a Christian and how you're taught that being gay is a sin, and how people go through these experiences of being like cleansed out of it or beat out of it. Like, it is such a great book. Everybody's dealing with some mess. Everybody, like, the mess is messing. From the start of the book to the end, the mess is messing. I promise you, it's a good book. If you take your time with it, it's a roller coaster. Moonrise over New Jessup. I finished it finally. I've had that book since I traced it back because I posted it in the Discord. I've loaned that book from the library, the audiobook, because I didn't have time to like read with my eyes for that one in the midst of all the other books I was reading with my eyes, so I listened to it. I had it since May, and the library took it away from me twice. Finally got it back and finally finished it. And you know, it was a good historical fiction. I've had this book on my shelf for years. The book came out, I'm going to tell you right now. The book came out, Moonrise.
2 hours later.
This book came out in 2023. I bought it then. We are in 2026. I'm just not getting to it. I said I was going to read it this year because I was like, why doesn't this book get as much, like, why does nobody talk about this book? You know, like, I was very confused as to why. And it is, I'm sorry, I just saw that there was okay. This is who I thought wrote the book. I saw a white woman pop up next to the book. I was like, what is happening? I think there is a really cool story to be told, and I liked it for what it was. But however, it was alright. It lost me in some bits, but the purpose was very good. I'll say that. I would read another book by the author. I think the writing was good from the jump. It was like, you know, this could be interesting. But, you know, yeah, it's not terrible, but, you know, I would try it again. Not the book, but I would try reading more of her work because I enjoyed how she approached the book, how she approached the story overall, and how she took us. I think there was parts that is definitely very much a slow burn, so I can see how people would feel, but there is a story there that is very much, in a sense, hidden. Then I read Something We Said, Richard Pryor, Notorious, Word and Me, and that is by Elizabeth Pryor, Richard Pryor's daughter. We had her on the podcast, which by the time this comes out, it will be out. This will come out Friday when you see it. So the podcast episode will be out next Tuesday, which was really great. She's great. I think we talked about so much stuff with her, but I will say this book is very good. It makes you understand and be in the mind of somebody that is biracial, and how that impacts them and that process, and also being somebody that is child of a star. Like, we're looking at iconic Richard Pryor, right? And to everybody, we have these memories, we hold like all his jokes with us. Like, we are looking at this man as somebody we revere, but this book humanizes him. This is Richard Pryor, the father and the man, and I think that was really cool to follow along with, as well as starting from a starting point of her talking about the use of the N-word and the impacts of that. So there's so much, like, you're starting from, we talked with her about like how she realized from start to finish who this man was and who he was to her. And I think it was just really beautiful. If you take it in with the memoir and you sit with it, I know some people have their thoughts, of course, but I think this was a really good one. And then, what else? I think that's it for books. Yeah, that's everything for books. Okay, let's get into TV. TV. Love Island. Okay, my final thoughts, because when I left you guys at was when Anaya and KC, that whole situation. Now Carl's back, all the things, like now everybody's like happy. I would say this season was much better than season 7. Like beyond, like light years beyond season 7. Yeah, these kids is much better than season 7, I will tell you that. The couples are great. I enjoyed each of them. I think where we are now, I want to preface this by saying, regardless of what we think, right? We may not like Sincere. We may not like Zach. We may not like Kinsey, or, impartial. But I think we also have to remember these people are human beings. Not to say they're not deserving of maybe lashings here and there, because some things that we're just like, no, that's not cool, that's not this. But we also have to take in mind we've only seen like a minute of 24 hours. Like realistically, right? A minute of bite-sized conversations through a 24-hour time period. I think what I loved about everybody's, like, this whole season is how raw and real everybody was for the most part, whether we believe relationships or not. It felt real to me. And I enjoyed seeing that flourish as we went along. Like, I enjoyed like how we saw Bryce and Trinity went from friends to lovers. Like, that was just a great trope to watch. Or we saw, like, obviously with Sincere and Melanie, a tumultuous relationship. I'll get into the parent situation. But they ultimately continue to choose what they believe versus what the outside world, of their parents, of whomever, what they believe. They continue to choose themselves. I think there's power in that, regardless of how we feel. Like you saying, maybe I'm going to listen to what I feel in this moment because I really feel strongly about somebody. At the age of 24 and 23, I think there's some power to that, because I'm 24 and 23 years old. I'm allowed to make mistakes, I'm allowed to like mess up. And I think as internet aunties, we want to like stop her from making those mistakes, but it's just like you can't do nothing about it. You feel me? Like, she's gonna do what she wanna do, he's gonna do what he wanna do. And I think there is some sort of like, if you think about how you were at that age, it is what it is, right? They'll live and learn, they'll figure it out. But I think we do too much rah-rah to like make sure they stop and shame them for doing what they feel they, at this point in time, is right for them. Kata and Zach, I liked their love story because they started off from the beginning and stuck with each other. Again, however we feel about Zach, that's another story I'll get into a little bit. Anaya and Carl, Niall, second chance. Like, there is something so beautiful about their love story. It's just phenomenal. But what I will say is, I personally would have liked to see TT and KC in the final four. I know people have their qualms, but like, the show's about love. And if we're being honest, they had the most fluid love story, I would say. They grew on me. I liked them. I think they're a good couple, and I think they're actually in love. And I think they should have stayed personally. But I get it. Core 4, I enjoy all of them. I think all those ladies are great. All black women, amazing. But I kind of would have liked to see Casey and TT, even though they probably would have got 4th place, honestly, truly. But I would have liked to see that over Melanie and Sincere, or Kata and Zach, personally. Okay, going to Parents' Night, Sincere and Melanie, again, like I said, we want to stop her from making these decisions. I loved how her mother poured into her sister. It sucks that she's not taking the advice, but I don't know what they're seeing in Sincere in the villa, but they all say the same thing of like, he's a great guy, he knows what he's done, da da da. I don't know. We're not there. I'm gonna just give it up and chuck it up to that and keep it moving. I wish them the best. You know, again, 23, 24, they doing what they feel is best for them and blocking out the noise, even though I think it's kind of stupid. Personally, I'll let them rock. I'll let them do their thing. Who else? Kata and Zach, I like them together. I think with Family Day, what it showed me is Zach is hiding in the limelight of his brother, and he's always hidden in the limelight of his brother. I think he's scared to love. I think he's scared to, I saw Gall say this on one of the podcasts, that he is scared that because he has dual citizenship in Australia and England, coming over here may be harder for him to stay, which is a reality. So when the exclusive thing came up, it's like, why are you afraid to commit? I think he's afraid to commit because he doesn't want to get his hopes up that he'll be able to be in America. And I say to that, things work out the way they're supposed to, you know? But I think he is scared of commitment because I think he's scared that none of this is going to be true. I don't like the joking around, but I can give grace. And I don't like that the fan base always gets weird when people get out of the villa, because then they start acting like they are God and they can control everything, which is absolutely insane. I do think people do need to know what they're doing, or what has been said before defense, but it's also like, my friend is being attacked for just simply existing in their mind. So like, I get it. The dates, the final dates, personally, again, I didn't mind the final dates. I am of the mindset of like, 3rd and 4th place, obviously you're not going to get the same shebang as 1st and 2nd place. And they kind of already allude to that. So if we saw Zach and Kata and Melanie and Sincere with their dates, that worked for them because they're in 3rd and 4th place. You know, like, I wasn't mad at it, personally. That's just me. But overall, I am happy. I like how Trinity and Bryce and all of them are moving this season post-Villa, because the fan base is crazy and people are insane. So that's all I have to say about that. Next, The Polygamist. Oh my gosh. This show is insane. I actually need to read the book, but this show is insane, bro. Like, I've never watched anything. Well, actually, I would say Greenleaf. Greenleaf in the sense of like the pacing of how intense and how crazy the show is. No, this is nuts. The Polygamist follows, if you haven't heard of it, it's a South African show on Netflix. The Polygamist follows a woman who is married to this man who is a owner of like a brokerage or something like that. He got bank in South Africa and stuff like that. Like, he is rich. And she finds out he has a side chick, right? You know, okay, he has a side chick. Cool, whatever. Not really cool, but like, you get what I'm saying. And the show starts off with him in a casket. So you're already like, where is this going? So then it goes to him being with this woman, the side chick, then the wife taking him back, then the wife taking him back, and then her saying she'll share him, basically. He potentially is with. It's one of the most insane shows I've ever seen. Like, it's up there with like, how did you think about this? But again, it's like, it's not hard, because real life is seriously like, life is an imitation of art. Like, or whatever the saying is. You know what I mean? It's like, it just went on a rat race. I will say, it was just so much happening that sometimes you wouldn't realize how bad some of the edits were. Like, when it's cut off here if you don't want any spoilers. But when homegirl fell down the stairs, one of the other wives, the original girlfriend, when she fell down the stairs, I was cackling, because like, why did you fall like that? But what I will say is, I watched a podcast episode with her in a South African podcast, the author in South African podcast. And she was saying, like, she realized, like, with the adaptation, the biggest difference is how they have fleshed out the kids a lot, which she enjoyed. So she said, because this was written like 2015, I think. I'm not positive. But yeah, she was saying, like, she enjoyed how they did that, because like, she didn't have the language at the time to go through the psychological effects of how it would be on the kids and, you know, all that stuff. So there's that. And then she also said that when her grandfather was the polygamist, and she said it was supposed to be more so, I think the book is based in Zimbabwe versus based in South Africa. This is not necessarily South African fully culture, but like, I guess in Zimbabwe it is like okay to have multiple wives or something like that. So don't count me on it, but I'll drop the podcast name here. It was a good listen. Like, I want to go back and read all her books, because it's very juicy. It's giving like Greenleaf type situation. Like, it's such a layered show that you wouldn't see the spin around of like her coming to the end of what she did. You know, like, you're like turning your head like by episode, and the episodes are short. Like, that's what I liked about it, is like, bring back like short episodes too. Like 30-minute, 24-minute episodes. Like, those are good too. Those are good. Okay, Tubi movie. Watch Stepfather with Tamar Braxton and Taye Diggs. I will say it is one of the better Tubi movies out there. Tamar's wig was fighting for a role. Stepfather is basically one of those movies where either character, the stepfather, whatever, a person is, they have a whole family, they kill them, and they go off and reinvent their new life. It's pretty much that. This guy, he killed his family, he went off, reinvented his own life, because he was dealing with mental illness. I think he had bipolar disorder or something like that. Went off, or multiple personality disorder, went off, created his own new life within 6 months with Tamar, and went about his business. And it goes from there. It wasn't bad. But it's one of the better Tubi movies. High up there. Good job. Art exhibition. I went to the Hospital of Emotions. I enjoyed it. I think I'm always weary about immersive type of or experiential experiences because our exhibitions, because sometimes they can become cheesy or very commercialized. I think with this one, it didn't give that as much. It still had moments where like there were some pieces I was like, well, okay, cool. But there was ones that were like really having a serious discussion about a lot of the effects that happened in the city. I liked that it was in an actual abandoned hospital. They had actual workers that were acting as, you know, you were checked in as a patient. You had a card of like before you discharge as well, and you stamp at each level the emotion. And as you're going to each level, you are experiencing different emotions. So compassion, hope, joy, sadness, anger, resilience. It was very nicely curated. I think that, like I said, I really enjoyed the discussions around the different niche topics within California and how each of these artists approach them. And then, of course, across the board, subjects that are legitimately that we deal with on a day-to-day across the world. Especially with compassion, I thought it was a really good approach a lot of artists did was like, a lot of people lack compassion nowadays and how that shows up in the everyday. So obviously as I'm talking about this, you'll be seeing pictures and stuff like that. But I liked a lot of them. And then there were some that made me think of like books. Like there was a jellyfish one. I forgot the emotion, but it made me think of like The Devil is Fine. If you've read that book by John Berger, I hope that's his name. I don't know why that, like, I know why, but it's just like, it's interesting because I think that was the one that dealt with grief or sadness or something like that. Don't quote me on it, but I thought that was very interesting. The parallels there. And then, yeah, there was a couple other ones that were really cool. But I think the only thing that with these immersive experiences, they be waxing the hell out of you with these prices. It was $58, and then like I made my rest with that. Like after I paid for it, but like $20 to park. Yeah, it was pretty rough. So I would say, you know, is it worth the full price of that? To an extent, but $20 parking at an abandoned hospital is OD in my opinion, but that's just me. And I think that's it with everything. I do have a couple little projects. The centennial the library is celebrating, the Central Library is celebrating their centennial, and they give you like these like archival cards. And when you go to each branch under the, I think it's the county library or the city, one of them, you get a stamp, which is the silhouette or the outline or like the details of that said library. So I tried to go to Koreatown and get Koreatown stamp, but apparently they're remodeling it like out of nowhere. So it was like a whole construction site. I was like, well, that would have been nice to know before I rolled up here, but whatever. But I'm gonna go to a couple other ones and get stamps and collect them. And then hopefully I'll vlog this, but we are revamping the living room area because my shelves can no longer hold the books that I have. I have to also clear them, but I'm getting a new shelving system, so I had to set that up. So that's why I don't film out there, is because it's a mess. But other than that, I think that's it. I think that's about it. I'll see you guys in the next video for another media center talk. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you next time. Bye guys.